It's Christmas again.
Red alert! Andy is coming upstairs!
And the toys are back in town.
Excuse me.
Impressive wingspan.
He's got more gadgets on him than a Swiss Army knife.
This is an intergalactic emergency. Who's in charge here?
Join Woody, Buzz,
Star Command, come in.
and friends.
Next stop, Andy.
The network premiere of Toy Story, Christmas Day at 4:40 on BBC One.
From the west!
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Which one of y'all kicked me?
Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan pick up a storm in the network premiere of Rush Hour tonight at 8:30 on BBC One.
The Christmas Eve news now on BBC One Wales with George Alagaya.
Charged and in court, the man accused of trying to blow up a plane. Still no clues about whether this man was working for a terrorist network. Arafat says he'll defy Israel's ban on visiting Bethlehem's midnight mass, and why some people are right to dream of a white Christmas. Good evening. The man accused of trying to blow up an American airliner has appeared in court in Boston. He's been charged under the name of Richard Reed. That's the name on the British passport he was carrying. But there are still question marks over his identity. Security has been tightened up at airports in America and France, where the flight took off, after the FBI confirmed the man had managed to conceal a working explosive device in his shoes. Here's our Washington correspondent, Stephen Sacker.
The would-be airline bomber on his way to a Boston courtroom under armed guard. It was a brief appearance. The judge read out the charge facing Richard Reed, that he assaulted and intimidated aircrew aboard American Airlines Flight 63 en route from Paris to Miami. Reed has a British passport. He saw a British consular official today, though no details were released. At Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport, they're still investigating the events that led up to the mid-air drama. Reed, who may have used other names in the past, boarded the plane with explosives hidden in his shoes. We're using more sniffer dogs, this police chief said, but the question remains, just how safe can air travel be made? Saturday's drama was captured on film. The American Airlines plane comes into Boston. Behind it, 2 U.S. fighters escorting it down. The images have prompted a new round of speculation about terrorist threats. But Richard Reed's background and his motivation remain a mystery. U.S., British and French officials are working closely together to see if there is any link to international terrorism.
Next, please.
At U.S. airports, new precautions are in place. Shoes are now routinely being put through screening machines.
Shoes now have to come off of the individual. They're visually and manually checked for any type of wires or anything that may be suspicious.
And that means more headaches and delays for airport staff and passengers during one of the busiest travel periods of the year.
Makes me feel even more nervous. I hate flying anyway, but I don't know. I'm wondering when it's going to stop.
I'm about to be missing my next flight in the last 2 days because of stuff like this, so it makes it kind of interesting that someone can get through with stuff like that.
Ever since September the 11th, the U.S. authorities have been on a heightened state of alert. Given last weekend's events, that is unlikely to change anytime soon.
Stephen, do we now have a better idea of what this man was actually capable of doing?
George, it looks as though he had makeshift explosive devices in both shoes. Now, we're not quite sure exactly what the plastic explosive was. There's been some dispute about that, but experts say that it was capable of working. The FBI is describing it as functional, and people believe that had he managed to detonate the explosive in his shoes, it could have done real damage to the plane. Some are saying it wouldn't have blown the plane up. I doubt that. But but it clearly would have caused a lot of damage. It may have caused enough damage to have put this flight into jeopardy, and people here are saying there is no doubt this man intended to commit suicide and take the plane down. So it is possible, just possible, at some later date that he might be charged with attempted mass murder, though for the time being, George, the charge remains this attempt at intimidation and assault to the aircrew on board the aircraft.
Stephen, judging by the passengers in your report, Americans must be wondering what more they can possibly do.
They must, because this country has been on a heightened state of alert since September the 11th, and we've had the FBI chief and the chief of Homeland Security being wheeled onto the stage at the White House and other locations saying that everybody must make every effort to be aware of their surroundings. The FBI has got all strategic assets under armed guard. Everything's being done to ensure security. But then we find in a French airport that a man's able to walk onto an aircraft with explosives hidden in his shoes. Many Americans deeply concerned about this. They see the sight at airports today where people are trying to travel home for Christmas of the long queues as shoes are taken off and put through new security screening measures. It does make people nervous. But as far as one can tell, people are still determined to travel, to enjoy their Christmas. And of course, the President's message is still resounding across this country. People mustn't let the terrorists win. They have to try to lead their normal lives.
Stephen, thank you. The search of a cargo ship suspected of carrying terrorist materials has been continuing today. The MV Nisha is still moored off the Isle of Wight. The vessel carrying 26,000 tons of raw sugar was seized in the English Channel on Friday. Our correspondent, John Brain, is in Bembridge on the Isle of Wight. John, it's, what is it, 4 days now since the search began? What's the latest?
Well, George, within the last hour, the boat has actually been on the move. It's travelled the 5 miles or so from Sandown Bay here to Bembridge, where I am now, and you could probably see the lights flickering over my shoulder of the Nisha. Officially the search is still continuing, and the move was simply to put it into calmer waters. But if this vessel does have sinister secrets on board, then it's jealously guarding them because, as you say, after 4 days, anti-terrorist officers don't appear to have found anything of significance. Now, the official line is that the vessel will remain here for the time being and eventually be moved to a dry dock for a more detailed examination. But we have been told that an announcement is imminent from Scotland Yard. It should have come earlier this afternoon. We're told it will be within the next half hour. So we're waiting to see if there has been a development. George.
John, thank you. A Palestinian militant has been killed in a shooting in the West Bank town of Nablus. The man was killed after a militia group opened fire on a Jewish settler, severely injuring him. Meanwhile, Israel is still refusing to allow the Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat to travel to Bethlehem for tonight's midnight mass. Israel said he must arrest a number of Arab militants, but Mr. Arafat has vowed to defy the ban, even if he has to make the 12-mile journey on foot.
The Holy Land's Christian leaders arriving in Bethlehem for celebrations which have changed little down the ages. This year, as every year, the faithful are gathering at the Nativity Church where they believe Christ was born. In recent times, the Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat would be here too, preparing to attend this evening's midnight mass, the center point of the Christmas celebrations. But all day, Chairman Arafat has been stuck across the West Bank in Ramallah. The local Christian community is offering the Palestinian leader its full support. The Vatican too is backing Yasser Arafat's efforts to persuade the Israelis to allow him to travel to Bethlehem to be with his people at Christmas. But so far there is no progress, and unlikely to be so given the personal hatred between Yasser Arafat and Ariel Sharon.
Who is Sharon? Who is Sharon?
The answer, of course, is that Ariel Sharon is the Israeli Prime Minister. He's still insisting that Yasser Arafat is going nowhere until he puts more Palestinian extremists behind bars. No compromise in what the Israelis call their war against terrorism.
On this Christmas Eve, people must make a decision. Clearly, are they for peace, for freedom, or they're for terrorism? And you can't have the freedom of going to participate in a mass and having the Christian world bestow legitimacy on you when you're still harboring murderers and terrorists.
Even with the Christmas celebrations in full swing, there's an underlying air of tension and expectation. The Palestinian people still hoping to see Yasser Arafat here at midnight, The Israelis ready to stop him by force if he attempts to move.
And Jeremy Cook joins me now. There is quite a delay on the line. Jeremy, this shooting was confirmed just before we came on air. It's bound to complicate matters, isn't it?
It is bound to complicate matters. This shooting happened near Nablus when Palestinian gunmen opened fire on a car carrying a Jewish settler. The settler is reported to have got out and returned fire. At least one Palestinian has been killed, and there are reports that the settler badly wounded. And the reason this is significant, George, is because the Palestinian organisation behind the attack says it carried out the shooting because of Yasser Arafat's ban, the ban on him coming here to Bethlehem for midnight mass, underlining just what a contentious issue this is.
Now, Jeremy, on that ban, plenty of people here, someone in the EU, the Pope, they've all asked Israel to reconsider this ban. Do you think they're going to have any effect on Mr. Sharon?
Well, Ariel Sharon is not a man who is known for his compromises, and all day the Israelis have held this strong line that until Yasser Arafat cracks down on Palestinian terror as they see it, then there is no way in their view that he should be allowed to come to midnight mass here. That in the face of the statement by the Vatican, the statements made also by the United Nations, the Americans behind the scenes working to try to get Yasser Arafat here. And George, just as we were coming on the air, there was growing excitement in the crowds, rumours that Yasser Arafat is going to try to get here, but it's very doubtful, I would suggest, at this time that he will be at midnight mass in a few hours' time.
Jeremy, thank you. The new leader of Afghanistan is trying to end the bitter factional feuding which has threatened previous governments. Hamid Karzai has named one of his sternest critics, the warlord General Dostum, as the new Deputy Defence Minister. Meanwhile, British troops have begun the long task of rebuilding the country's battered infrastructure. From Kabul, our World Affairs correspondent Caroline Wyatt has sent this report.
Afghanistan's Defence Minister General Fahim and his new deputy, General Rashid Dostum. He's better known as the Uzbek warlord who helped reduce Kabul to rubble in the early 1990s, including the airport here. The people of the city hope he'll play a more constructive role this time. Yet General Dostum believes he's earned his place, a reward for routing the Taliban from the north. Bringing these warlords into the fold is a gamble, but leaving them out, perhaps a bigger risk. Today, the country's new leader, Hamid Karzai, was admitting no doubts.
We have a very old, good relationship with my brother, General Dostum.
Yet splits are already emerging in this coalition beneath the smiles and handshakes. Mr. Karzai wants the international force here for a minimum of 6 months. The Northern Alliance say that's the maximum. Much will depend on how useful that force is. The British troops here have already begun the task of reconstruction. This was the main bridge linking Bagram Air Base to Kabul. Rebuilding it will help the soldiers and civilians alike.
When you come into a country like this and you help them build bridges, obviously help them rebuild their country, then they don't look at you as an aggressor, and they help you, and they don't want to fight against you.
Before the work can begin, engineers must check the ground for landmines, a constant danger for everyone here. The British troops are keen to show the Afghan people that they're here to help. The Afghans themselves have the expertise for these projects, but they don't have the money or the equipment, and the international community will have to do much, much more to help rebuild this country. The Marines feel they've made a good start, saying the welcome they've received has been unexpectedly warm.
We expected it to be quite hostile, but generally the people were friendly, and even people saluting and cheering when we were in the streets.
It's young Afghans like Zabit and his friends that the Marines will have to win over. Just 16, they've been using weapons since they were 10. It's the only skill they have. Ensuring peace means that persuading them that putting down their weapons is the only way ahead. Caroline Wyatt, BBC News, Kabul.
The Siamese twins who were recently separated by surgeons in Birmingham have been allowed home today, just in time for Christmas. Doctors at the city's children's hospital say they're delighted at the progress of Eamon and Sanchia Mowat, who were joined at the spine.
Just 2 weeks ago, Sancha and Eamon Mowat were joined together at the base of their spines. Now they're thriving, putting on weight, and able to go home with their parents.
Well, it's a special message, isn't it? And it's a special time, really. And we're just looking forward to it because it'll be the first time, well, it'll be the first Christmas with the family.
It took a 16-hour operation at Birmingham's Children's Hospital to separate the twins. Surgeons say their progress has been nothing short of fantastic, and Mum and Dad know exactly what they'll be giving them for Christmas.
A lot of TLC when they get home, and I do think that we should spoil them because for what they've been through, they deserve it.
The twins will be back for regular checkups, but for now it's home to enjoy the holiday. Tony Morris, BBC News.
Sport and England's cricketers have arrived back from their tour of India. Nasser Hussein's squad lost the series 1-0, but their good performances in the last 2 drawn tests have raised hopes for the one-day tour of India in the new year. The selectors will announce a squad after Christmas. The last-minute dash to meet friends and relatives for Christmas has been underway all day. Driving organisations say all the main routes have stayed relatively free-flowing today. But with snow likely in Scotland and northern England overnight, it could be the bookmakers who are up earliest tomorrow morning. They're facing a huge payout on a white Christmas.
The roads have been quite busy today, especially around the major shopping centres. But motoring organisations say many people made their Christmas journeys as early as Friday or Saturday. To avoid mishaps over the holiday, the AA advised motorists to check their cars were fit for winter driving.
We advise drivers who are setting out today to be prepared for delays because Christmas Eve is traditionally very busy on the roads. Also, make sure your car's ready for the journey. 1 in 5 of the breakdowns we'll attend will be because of a poor battery, so check that out now rather than risk a breakdown over Christmas.
Train operators said demand seemed little higher today than on a normal Monday. Rail services will soon start to wind down. Passengers travelling this evening are advised to check the time of the last train. Tomorrow and on Boxing Day, hardly any mainline services will be running. If Christmas travel hasn't been as frenetic as it can be, Britain's shoppers have kept up a ferocious pace. Some of the biggest stores report sales up 5 or even 10% on last year. In the Cairngorms near Aviemore today, the first passengers travelled through a snowbound landscape up the mountainside on a new funicular railway. The wintry weather that brought snow over the weekend to the Scottish Highlands and to East Anglia is set to return. The chances of a white Christmas are highest in Scotland, where many areas are forecast to see heavy snowfalls. George Eakin, BBC News.
And the main news again. The man accused of trying to blow up an American airliner has appeared in court in Boston. He's been charged under the name of Richard Reed, the name on the British passport he was carrying. There will be more from the newsroom at 11:15 on BBC One, and there are news updates throughout the evening on BBC News 24. For the moment, bye-bye.
Good evening. It's going to be a white Christmas for some of us. Some heavy snow in northern Scotland and a scattering of snow showers elsewhere too. The best chance to catch one is going to be near to the coasts. Now, it's quite cloudy and mild at the moment, but that cold air is going to move south behind this cold weather front throughout tonight and tomorrow. You can see those wintry showers around the coasts, but it looks like the snowiest weather will be across northern Scotland. So some pretty nasty weather here with some heavy snow and indeed some drifting in a bitter northerly wind. And that cold north or northwesterly wind is going to set in right the way across the United Kingdom throughout tonight and tomorrow. Look at the size of these arrows. It really is going to feel cold. Temperatures will reach 4 or 5 degrees in southern areas, no higher than freezing in parts of the north. Add on the strength of the wind and it's going to feel well below freezing. Really cold if you are heading out for your post-Christmas lunch stroll. That's going to be quite a mild start in southern areas tomorrow. That rain slowly clearing away, perhaps turning to sleet over the hills for a time. Then sunny spells and those wintry showers, mainly in the north, but a few elsewhere too, particularly in parts of northeast England, Northern Ireland and towards Wales. Then on Boxing Day, these snow showers in the east will fizzle away. Most places dry, sunny and cold, with some more cloud, rain, sleet and snow moving in from the northwest. So lots to watch for over the next few days. Later in the week, it could turn very windy, further snow.
That's Mr. Bojangles. A big juicy kiss from you, my They call him Mr. Bojangles.
the show.
It's good for sex, apparently.
Come back and dance, please.
Like the touch paper and stand well back.
A very special lineup of guests for a very special time of year.
Enjoying this, Michael. It's a good one.
Parkinson, tonight at 10 on BBC One.
Come back and dance.
Good evening, monsieur. I do not believe I've had the pleasure.
The name's Trotter. Derek Trotter.
The Only Fools and Horses Christmas Special. Christmas Day at 9:05 on BBC One.
The latest news making the headlines in Wales today, now on BBC One Wales with Jamie Owen.
Good evening. A record Christmas is being predicted, with some shops reporting sales up by as much as 10% on last year. With just an hour or so left, shoppers all over Wales are frantically buying their last presents, while others have been leaving for warmer climes. Rodri Lewis reports.
The hours were ticking away, yet still the streets of Cardiff were thick with shoppers. But many of these were looking to get more for their money in the pre-Christmas sales.
Manic. There's huge queues everywhere, and I think there's a lot of things being brought back as well.
Everyone's gotten kind of clued up as to the sales starting the day before Christmas, so they come out and do the last minute kind of thing.
Though things were quieter in Caernarfon, traders are predicting another bumper Christmas year. Supermarkets say they're bearing up well, with plenty of turkeys available in this one at least, even if there were only crumbs left in the bread department.
What you see a lot of is husbands and wives walking around here with a trolley each. One's filling it full of food and one's filling it full of presents, or getting booze, or getting all different kinds of things. You know, people going through 2 trolleys for a family. It's incredible how much people are buying.
But for those who didn't care if they had a pudding or not, the airport and foreign climes beckoned. The numbers travelling abroad over Christmas have doubled in the past 10 years. Well, the bad news is if you haven't got your Christmas food in by now, then you're probably too late. The good news, however, is that most shops will be open again on Thursday. Rodri Lewis, BBC Wales Today, Cardiff.
A closed-circuit television camera has been installed in the street where a pensioner was murdered a month ago. Anglesey Council hope it'll reassure residents in Llanfairpwll over the holiday period. North Wales Police are still hunting the killer of 90-year-old Mabel Lation. Meanwhile, Dyfed-Powys Police are investigating the death of a 48-year-old man who was found at his home in Llandovery. David James' body was discovered in the Maes Glas area on Saturday. The Royal Gwent Hospital has made provisions for a dying man to go home for Christmas. Michael Davis from Blackwood, who has bone cancer, was told he couldn't return to stay with his wife because there was no specialist care available. Now the hospital has organised round-the-clock nursing. A rural helpline set up to offer support to farmers during the foot and mouth crisis has reopened to offer counselling over Christmas. Volunteers are on hand with advice 24 hours a day.
Wyn and Joe Jones are at last beginning to rebuild their lives, gradually restocking their Churchstoke farm. But as pedigree cattle bred over generations were destroyed, their desperation graphically illustrated the impact of foot and mouth disease.
Rural Stress Information Network, can I help you?
At the height of the crisis, a rural helpline was set up to offer support and advice to struggling farmers. Now, although Wales is officially clear of the disease, the Rural Stress Network has decided to reopen the line around the clock over Christmas and New Year.
It's a time when everybody enjoys themselves, and there will be people out there who will not be able to enjoy themselves. They are uncertain about their future in their businesses, in farming and other than farming.
The network's asking people in rural areas to keep in touch with their neighbours over the next week, but say those dreading the festive season can find help at the end of a phone.
And that phone number is 02476 412 916. The police are trying to find a shopper who ruffled a few feathers by allegedly attacking another woman with a frozen turkey. Staff at the Morrison's supermarket in Barry say they argued over the last bird in the shop. Later, the younger woman was heard shouting that she hoped her rival's Christmas dinner would burn. The weather forecast for Wales, little chance of a white Christmas, a cloudy night with patchy light rain, feeling cold, top temperatures around 3 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow a risk of wintry showers. And that's Wales Today. On behalf of all of us at BBC Wales, it just remains for me to wish you a very Merry Christmas. Good evening.
Christmas Eve on BBC One Wales.
Join us again for the weakest link. Flubber! Wow, Weevil!
Rejoice, because it's Dale's National Lottery Christmas Cracker.
That's the lineup to come tonight.
She cast a spell so powerful.
If you could take me back then, and you were able to tell me exactly what has happened, I wouldn't believe you at all.
So bewitching.
The idea came out of nowhere. It was the most physical rush of excitement.
It enchanted the whole world.
I would plead for her to write another book. They're just so good.
Now in her first ever in-depth interview, she reveals how.
Maybe the moment has come, just to say how it happened.
J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter and Me, Friday at 7 on BBC One.
Robbie Williams, Lenny Henry, Dame Edna Everage, Jerry Halliwell and Charlotte Church. A star-studded Christmas special with Parkinson tonight at 10 here on BBC One Wales.
The contestants preparing for